Octavia's puh. 4 vases, 1 by the top, 3 on the right. Don't forget the fire rings, I explained, trying to keep the exasperation out of my voice. It was the 3rd time I'd given these instructions, and my patience was wearing thin. I'm sorry, Your Highness, Janet apologized, her hands trembling as she arranged the ceremonial objects. I glanced sideways at her, uncertain how to handle her nervousness. This wasn't just any ordinary day. It was arguably the most important day in our coven's recent history. Tonight, all daughters and sons of the moon were expected to dance in the moonlight and perform our sacred rites for the new set of witches joining the coven. But this year, something unprecedented was happening. After years of isolation, the coven had finally agreed to let outsiders in. It had taken countless arguments, pleas, and negotiations, but the eldest witches had at last relented to my persistent appeals. Now we stood on the brink of a new era, one where the barriers between supernatural beings might finally start to crumble. Werewolves, elves, vampires, or bloodsuckers, and representatives from every tribe of supernatural beings had been invited. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on my shoulders. I couldn't afford to let anyone mess this up. As I watched Janet scurry about, I couldn't help but reflect on the history that had led us to this moment. After decades, no, millennia, of endless war amongst the supernatural tribes, we witches had often found ourselves on the losing end. Despite our unparalleled powers, spells, potions, chants, and raw magic that could reshape reality itself, we were feared by all. This fear had driven us into isolation, hidden behind a powerful cloaking spell that no outsider could penetrate. But the spell, for all its power, came with a price. It required balance, a living anchor to maintain its potency. That anchor was me. I still remember the day my mother realized the extent of my abilities. I had been quite young when she claimed I had powers far beyond those of other children my age. As I grew, my abilities only became stronger, sometimes spinning out of control. Most witches specialized in 1 or 2 areas of magic. Some could manipulate the elements, earth, wind, and fire. Others had cloaking abilities to keep themselves hidden from danger. Many were skilled in spellcasting and potion making, but I was different. I had all of these powers and more. I could bend the forces of nature to my will, cloak myself for as long as I desired, cast powerful spells, and conjure complex potions with ease. But there was one power that even my mother insisted I keep hidden, my ability to glimpse the unforeseen future. I was a seer, a rarity even among our kind. It was this combination of abilities that had led to my selection as head of the coven, at an age many considered far too young for such responsibility. Now, the veil that kept us hidden from the world was bound to my very essence. As long as I lived and willed it, the barrier would stand. It was both a privilege and a burden, one that I bore with pride and no small amount of trepidation. Year after year, I had upheld my duties, maintaining the veil and protecting our people. Some had claimed I was too young to wield such power and hold such a position, but tonight was my chance to prove them wrong. Tonight, I would show that witches and wizards could coexist with every other supernatural being. This gathering was just the first step. Octavia, a familiar voice called out, pulling me from my reverie. I turned to see Alan, my childhood friend, approaching with a mixture of concern and amusement on his face. "Don't tell me you were off in your mind again, dreaming about your grand plans for world peace?" he teased, giving me a playful shove. A smile tugged at my lips despite my nerves. Even on a day as momentous as this, Alan had a way of keeping me grounded. "Isn't that your highness to you?" I shot back, arching an eyebrow. "You can't go around addressing the head of the coven so casually. I might have to cut that tongue out of your mouth." Alan rolled his eyes, reaching out to tug gently on a strand of my hair. "You wish. But seriously, Octavia, I'm worried. It's been years since we last lifted the veil. Are you absolutely certain you've thought this through? One mistake could jeopardize our entire existence." I met his gaze, seeing the genuine concern in his eyes. "What's life without a little risk?" I asked, but my tone was softer now, acknowledging the weight of his words. "I hope you don't regret this," Alan called after me as I made my way towards the great gates that separated our hidden realm from the outside world. I waved him off, quickening my pace. The gates loomed before me, ancient and imposing. Guards stood at attention, their faces a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. The decorations had been set perfectly, and I allowed myself a moment of pride. This was it. The moment that would define not just my legacy, but the future of our entire coven. I would be remembered forever. This was my first step towards ensuring that our coven wouldn't have to stay hidden and feared anymore. We were just like every other supernatural being, and it was time the world recognized that. Glancing behind me, I saw that a crowd had already formed. All our troops were in place, ready to welcome our guests. Taking a deep breath, I began to chant, drawing in air and weaving my spells. A scream tore from my throat as I separated my essence from the veil. The sensation was indescribable. My body went numb, muscles contracting painfully as I was lifted off the ground by an unseen force. Blinding light filled my vision, and for a moment, I feared I had made a terrible mistake. But then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. I found myself back on solid ground, the veil temporarily lowered. With a nod to the guards, I watched as the gates slowly creaked open. For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, hesitantly at first but with growing confidence, our guests began to enter. My smile widened as I saw beings of all kinds make their way into our grounds. My heart swelled with joy, threatening to burst from my chest. This was everything I had dreamed of and more. But in an instant, everything changed. The world around me seemed to blur and waver. I blinked hard, trying to clear my vision, but the strange sensation persisted. Slowly, I shut my eyes, praying that when I opened them, everything would be back to normal. It wasn't. A gasp escaped my lips as I took in the scene before me. Where moments before there had been a joyous gathering, there was now only carnage. Blood covered every surface, the metallic scent overwhelming my senses. Agony and pain radiated through the air, almost tangible in its intensity. And everyone, witches, werewolves, vampires, elves, they were all gone. A scream built in my throat, raw and primal. It tore from my lips as I raised my gaze to the sky. The moon that had shone so brightly silver was now a sickening shade of red, casting an ominous glow over the scene of destruction. As if to punctuate the horror, droplets began to fall from the crimson sky. But it wasn't rain, it was blood, warm and sticky, pattering against my skin. All around me I could see heads rolling grotesquely across the once pristine ground. In that moment, as I stood amidst the carnage of my shattered dreams, I realized the terrible truth. Sometimes the future we see is not a promise of what will be, but a warning of what could come to pass. The question now was, could I find a way to prevent this vision from becoming reality, or had I already set in motion events that could not be undone? The red moon loomed above, a silent witness to my anguish, as I struggled to find a path forward through the blood-soaked ruins of my grand design, Octavia's Pav. I blinked rapidly, trying to process the stranger's words through the haze of my emotions. The handkerchief he offered was a stark white against his tanned skin, a jarring contrast to the tumultuous darkness swirling within me. Thank you, I managed, accepting the cloth and dabbing at my eyes. The fabric came away stained with the silvery sheen of witches' tears. I hastily folded it, hoping he hadn't noticed. Zachary, you said? I don't believe we've met before. His smile was warm, almost disarmingly so. We haven't. I'm one of the werewolf delegates. I couldn't help but overhear. Well, not the words, but the emotion. It seemed like you could use a friendly face. I stiffened slightly. How much had he heard? The corridor had seemed empty, but werewolves were known for their keen senses. That's very kind of you, I said carefully, straightening my posture and trying to regain some semblance of the composure expected from the head of the coven. I hope you're finding our hospitality satisfactory? Zachary's eyes, a striking amber that seemed to glow with an inner light, studied me intently. Oh, more than satisfactory. It's been quite the experience so far, though I must admit I didn't expect to find the architect of this historic gathering in tears in a hidden corridor. His words, though spoken gently, hit me like a physical blow. I was supposed to be leading this event, ensuring its success, not hiding away and falling apart. The weight of my vision, of Alan's anger and disappointment threatened to overwhelm me once more. It's nothing, I lied, hating how easily the deception came to my lips now. Just the stress of the day catching up with me, I suppose. Nothing for our guests to be concerned about. Zachary's eyebrow arched skeptically. Is that so? because from where I'm standing, it seems like there might be quite a bit for us to be concerned about. My heart rate spiked. What do you mean? I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a whisper. Let's just say werewolves have excellent hearing, and the walls here aren't as thick as you might think. Ice flooded my veins. He had heard. He knew about my vision, about the blood moon. Panic clawed at my throat, threatening to escape in a scream. I don't know what you think you heard, I started, but Zachary held up a hand, cutting me off. What I heard, he said calmly, was someone trying to do the right thing, even when it's difficult. Someone who's carrying a heavy burden and isn't sure how to share it. I stared at him, speechless. This wasn't the reaction I had expected. Where was the anger? The accusation? The demand for explanations? Zachary continued, his voice low and urgent. Listen, I don't pretend to understand all the intricacies of witch politics or prophecies, but I do know that sometimes the future isn't set in stone. Sometimes knowing what might happen gives us the power to change it. His words echoed in my mind, stirring something I had almost forgotten in my panic, hope. You really think so? I asked, hating how small and uncertain my voice sounded. He nodded firmly. I do, but I also think you can't do it alone. You need allies, Octavia, people you can trust, who can help you navigate this. I thought of Alan, of the hurt and betrayal in his eyes. I'm not sure I have those anymore, I admitted, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. Zachary's hand found mine, squeezing gently. The warmth of his touch was surprising, grounding. You have more than you think. Your friend, Alan, was it? He's angry, yes, but that anger comes from a place of care. And as for the rest of us, he gestured vaguely, indicating the gathering beyond the corridor. We're all here because we believe in what you're trying to do. If there's a threat to that, we deserve to know, but we also deserve the chance to stand with you against it. His words resonated within me, challenging the fear and isolation that had taken root. Could it really be that simple? To reach out, to trust, to allow others to share this burden? I need to think, I said finally. This isn't a decision I can make lightly. Zachary nodded, understanding in his eyes. Of course, but don't take too long. If what I overheard is true, time might not be on our side. As if to emphasize his point, a distant bell tolled, signaling the next phase of the gathering. Reality crashed back in. I had duties to attend to, a role to play. I should go, I said, straightening my robes. Thank you, Zachary, for the handkerchief and for everything else. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that felt at odds with the informal conversation we just shared. It's my honor, Your Highness. I hope we'll have the chance to speak again. As I turned to leave, to rejoin the celebration, and pretend that my world hadn't just been shaken to its core, Zachary's voice stopped me one last time. Octavia, whatever you decide, remember this. Unity isn't just about bringing different groups together for a day. It's about standing together in the face of adversity. Don't underestimate the strength you might find if you're willing to reach for it. With those words echoing my mind, I stepped back into the light of the grand hall, the sounds of laughter and music washing over me. The gathering continued, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. As I plastered on a smile and moved to greet the next group of delegates, one thought repeated itself in my mind. I had until nightfall to decide the fate of everything I had worked for, everything I believed in. The choice between secrecy and trust, between facing the future alone or standing united against it, loomed before me, and as the red moon of my vision hung in my mind's eye, I knew that whatever I decided would change the course of history, for better or for worse. Octavia's Povey. Thank you, I responded. I exhaled slowly, trying to hold in every bit of pain I felt reeled into me. It was almost impossible for me to hold my stance. There was something about the blue in his eyes that drew out my soul. Your eyes? I whispered. Most of us in the coven had shades of black and brown, but I had never seen a man with blue eyes before. Perhaps that remained one of the reasons I couldn't stop myself from being attracted to his beauty. I'm sorry if I came intruding. It's just that you had been crying all along, and I happened to have noticed you got into a fight with some man? Is that your lover? Zachary asked, and I couldn't help bursting into a loud peal of laughter, my entire sorrow gone at mere thought. No, he isn't. Of course not all. And I am best friends. Childhood friends, really. and I don't see him in that light. I won't see him in the light of a lover. I try to reassure myself more than the breathtakingly handsome stranger who stood before me. Well, you seem to be crying, and it looks so personal. Are you sure you haven't fallen for your best friend? He asked, leaning closer to me again. I slouched my shoulders, not knowing what to say. But maybe he was 8. I always claimed I did feel nothing for Alan, yet when he called me a liar and passed me that nasty look, I had never felt as pained as I had done at that moment. No, of course not. I do not like him. I have zero feelings for him. Just somewhat personal, and I'm at fault. That's all. I hate fighting with him. I explained. A warm smile settled into Zachary's lips as he dabbed gently and softly against the sides of my cheeks while my cheeks flushed red. You didn't wipe your tears well, but now it's all done. Do you want to talk about it? This fight with your friend? He again lending me a listening ear, but my eyes remained glued on his soft lips, the look in his eyes and how he spoke. His pointed nose and dimples, which complemented his sets of teeth anytime he smiled. This was a lot, truth be told, and I had never gotten as swooned as I did this with this man in my life. I wanted to know more about him. I wanted to stop time, keeping this moment between us frozen for long. Do I really want this feeling between us? I'm Octavia, by the way, I added in foolishly after realizing I had my eyes lingering on him for way too long than necessary. I hastened my steps, heading away from the corridor towards the crowd. Don't run from me. I believe we were making progress, he called out from behind me, causing me to stop for a halt. What progress? I asked with a teasing smile while tilting my head sideways. A lot of progress. I want to know more about you, Octavia. I am a wolf. I'm just like this. I would be honest and tell you I have no mate and I have no one I'm seeing at this particular time. But seeing you cry melted my heart, and after having this conversation with you, I think we would make a hood match, Octavia, Zachary explained. A smile stretched upon his lips, and once again my eyes wandered off his lips. I don't think so. I'm a witch. You are a wolf. Besides, we just met, isn't it? I asked, drawing a boundary line between us almost immediately. No, it doesn't matter. Isn't that the essence of the entire thing? That we can coexist together? So why are you quick to split a line between us? He asked me, and I realized this must be how I made Alan feel all through, putting a boundary between us. I'm not sure. The veil would be dropped tonight, and I don't think we would ever get a chance to see each other again, I explained to him. He looked rather disappointed after hearing my words. I bit slowly on my lips, lost at any encouraging words, and at the moment I regretted being born as a witch or being made an anchor between our world and the one outside. Only if things were different, only if this wasn't my identity, only if I was someone else, then things would have been different. How about this? I'll wait around. I noticed a huge tree with pots of ripe grapes. I'll wait there tonight after the ceremony, and tomorrow, if you do not come around, then I'll take it as your response to not meeting me again, he offered. He really was a sly one, putting me in a tough position. You want me to lift the veil? You know how much of a risk it is, I asked with a giggle. It isn't too much for love, right? He asked, leaning closer to me. I felt my heart race. Your Highness, Janet called out to me and turned away almost immediately as she caught sight of Zachary and I. It's not what you think, okay? I asked her slowly, and she nodded with a smile. We watched as Zachary made his way past us, sure to pass smiles at both of us. Please don't say a word of this to anyone ever, please, I pleaded, and she nodded once again. The elders of the coven are already seated. The rites have begun, but you were missing. I was asked to find you, she explained. I nodded as we both laughed. Made our way was the main grounds. My cheeks flushed red as I recalled the words Zachary had just spoken. Did he just call it love? He really did seem like a cheeky person, but the actual question remained the same. Am I willing to lift the veil to risk meeting this handsome stranger? Octavia's povey. I mumbled to myself while I made my way through the thick trees, scared that someone from the coven might see me. It has been 2 weeks already. 2 weeks I've met Zachary. 2 weeks of rolling around in the streets with him. 2 weeks of running and sneaking out of the coven grounds. I have never broken so many rules in my life as I had done with Zachary. But it was the best 2 weeks of my life, everything fell into place just like we were meant to be. And I found it totally unbelievable. Nothing could be done on my end. There was no remedy for it. I was in love with him, head over heels. I couldn't just opt out. Although I know letting down the veil every day and night wasn't the smartest choice I could make, I still could not put it off my mind. A louder gasp erased my lips as soon as I felt something brush past me. "Goodness, you scared me, Zach," I muttered, feigning a false frown. He lifted me up while I wrapped my legs around his waist and drew our lips against each other. I felt a calm and tingling sensation as my heart throbbed, wanting more. Zach's hands ran down my side, sending tingles down my spine. I felt them travel over my thighs, between my laps and off to my already wet cunt. "Stop! Wait!" I was quick to cut our heated, sensual moment. He pulled away from me in an instant. "Still scared?" he asked while letting me down slowly. "I want to do this with you, Zach, but then it means dull commitment, and I'm not sure." I stopped midway into my word, pondering on the right words to use. I don't want to ruin the moment we had, and neither was I interested in getting myself all worked up baselessly. "You don't think I'm committed to you, Octavia? Is that why you are worried?" he asked while circling his thumb above my cheeks while a louder sigh was rough on my lips. "It's not a fan from the truth. I don't know what else to do. I love you, Zach. I really do, but we are off in a different world, and I just don't know if I'm taking things too fast with you. I mean, it's just been 2 weeks." A loud laughter eased through his lips just as soon as I was done speaking. He really did know when to make Ms. look like a clown. "I don't know what's going on in that head of yours, my love. Yes, it has just been 2 weeks agreed, but it remains one of the best weeks of my life. I don't ever want you to think you are moving too fast with me. This is our pace, although you do have a point about the commitment aspect." He pulled out a little box from his pocket and flipped it open before reaching out the box. "To me, I want to get married to you, Octavia. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want you to rule by my side as a Luna, but I don't know if you are ready to sacrifice it all for me. I won't be such a Swedish person to ask you about giving up everything you have just to be with me, but I'll leave the decision to you, and I won't ask you twice if you don't want to be fine." I pressed my lips against his while engulfing him into a warm embrace. "Yes, Zachary, yes, we belong with each other. I don't care. I'd like to leave the oven forever as long as I get to be with you." I screamed from excitement and delight. He pulled me closer, and soon our lips matched once more into a passionate yet intense kiss. We bid ourselves farewell with a smile that settled onto each of our lips. We agreed on talking to our people about the marriage plans. I do speak with them while he introduces it all to his pack. According to him, they might come off, but he has it under control as far as we had each other. I, on the other hand, have served the council of the coven faithfully and fruitfully. I'm sure they would understand that it's time I chase a path to my own happiness too. I couldn't wait a minute more to share the news as I stood the eldest of the coven, Tessa, Halfdan, Dean, and Astrid, the 2 most powerful witches and 3 wizards, and I, being one of them, had been given the right to summon them. "What is it that you called us here for in the dead of night, Octavia?" Tessa asked, being the most outspoken of them. I pulled out my palms towards her face before wiggling my finger into the sky. They all erupted into a loud laughter and slapped. "Finally, Alan stepped up his game. I always wondered when you 2 would make a go at it." Astrid reported, smiling widely. I could see the excitement on all their faces, which indeed made me feel at ease. "It's not Alan, my elders." I get into their worst feeling a bit guilty. I could see the confused looks on their faces, which bothered me a lot. They all believed I and Alan were actually ending up together? Maybe it was unfair. I never should have settled into things without talking to Alan first, but he was my best friend. I'm certain he would be happy for me just like anyone else. "It isn't a child. Then who is this man who had gotten you betrothed to him?" Halfdan asks. He wasn't quite known for his patience. I cleared my throat, knowing this was the only shot. "It's not Alan. As a matter of fact, he doesn't stay here. His name is Zachary. He's not one of us. He is a wolf." Octavia's povey. "It is impossible. A straight taboo," Elder Astrid reported while lines of frowns formed on her temples. She wasn't going to take whatever I said so seriously, and judging by the look on the other faces, they really were not going to allow it either. "But I love him, and he loves me," I argued, my voice thinning out at the end. "Love? What do you think you know about love, Octavia? Your entire years had been spent within this grounds, and you've been stuck on and with Alan for years. So yes, I will not say anything if you intend to get married to Alan, head of the warrior. So it's done. But if you think I'll let you off with that wolf boy, then you must not know who I am," Astrid threatened. I listened to them as they wanted one after the other. It was almost as if they had expected this twist of events, but they really didn't seem to be interested in anything I had to say. I have spent my entire life being with this coven. Not for once have I misused my power. Not for once have I acted short or fallen offline, but you dare speak down on me? How? Do I look like a freaking joke to you all? I asked, letting off my anger. I gave them respect and honored them in just about due time and way, and yet this is all I was getting in return. Some backlash and decisions on how to manage life, were they serious? Fine, I'll make this clear. I would not be staying in this coven anymore. Perhaps you all might think I need this place filled with liars, but I don't. I will have a family of my own, okay, with Zachary, and I would not need the likes if you pushed me away. The choice is yours. It's either you accept him or you lose me. I threatened. They all held their silence, none saying a thing to the other, but the answer on their faces spoke volumes. I'm sorry, I should have known how selfish and self-caring you all are, elders. What a joke! You all are a bunch of backbiters and self-loving holistic psychopaths. I hereby denounce myself as the leader of the coven. Octavia, how dare you? They all chanted in unison. I could see they tapped into their inner spirit, but they had been the major intention all along, to screw me over one after the other, and I most certainly would not hesitate to lash back at them. The door opened, and Alan made his way into the hall. His eyes lingered on the ring on my finger, and he raised his eyes to match mine. Who gave you this? Who dared cross me and take what's mine? He retorted again, and a scoff eased through my lips. Yours? I guess you all and every other person in the coven is nothing but a bunch of hypocrites. I do not owe any of you a thing in my life. I snapped before storming past him. I won't ever return here. You can all die for all I care. I'll drop them permanently. Find someone else to use as your pawn in these little games of yours. You will lose your powers, Alan retorted, but you had gotten enough of their worries. Why couldn't they understand it? I'm sorry, Alan, but I'll do it for love. Goodbye. I stormed out of the room in anger. I didn't wait. I could hear Alan screaming after me, but I wasn't interested in any of it. I had cloaked myself in order to hide from it. Finally standing out, I took a long glance at the entity before me. It had been my home for years, but I refused to have second thoughts now, especially after all they said just now. I realized I was left to make a decision between my role, my powers as a witch, and being with Zachary. But I knew I would not live without Zachary. I couldn't. Not with how things unfolded, so I parted my lips and chanted in a few spells, muttering the conjuring spell I had for long mastered and believed I could upset. Tears streaked through my eyes as the feeling released into me. Once more, I felt my soul getting yanked apart from my body. It lasted for several minutes before I could finally push my doors open, and then I realized I was right. It was done, and I lost my powers already. I turned on my feet, feeling somewhat motu while heading towards our meeting spot. How did it go? Zach asked, as soon as he set his eyes on me. How it sounded rather than how he spoke. The pack had agreed? I'm allowed to marry you, but I don't know if you still want to? I asked. I felt his hands tense as he did. What is wrong? Why are you crying, my love? It breaks my heart to see you like this. You don't have to do this, you know? He asked, and I nodded before burying my face into it. They didn't allow it. I had to hike up my status and powers. I will never be one of them again. I did it for love, for you, for us. I broke into while Zach rapped away at me slowly. Let it all out. You have me. You don't need them. I'm here for you, Octavia. I love you. Let's get married tomorrow, Zachary announced, taking no surprise. I pulled away from him slowly, only to a warm and reassuring smile on his lips. You heard me right, Octavia. We get married tomorrow. I've waited for tomorrow, and now the day has finally approached, he asserted before leaning to kiss me. He was right. I needed notice else but him. As long as we had each other, I wanted nothing else. I had a wedding to prepare for, Octavia's Pove. The weight of my decision pressed down on me like a physical force. I stood at the edge of our sacred grove, the gentle rustling of leaves, a stark contrast to the turmoil in my heart. My sister's words echoed in my mind, their warnings about Zachary ringing with an urgency I couldn't ignore. "Octavia, you can't trust him," Lyra had pleaded earlier that day. "He's an outsider. He doesn't understand our ways." I'd brushed off their concerns, convinced that my love for Zachary transcended their fears. But now, alone with my thoughts, doubt began to creep in. The snap of a twig pulled me from my reverie. I spun around, my hand instinctively reaching for the ceremonial dagger at my hip. Relief washed over me as I saw Zachary emerge from the shadows, his familiar smile warming my heart. "I didn't mean to startle you," he said, closing the distance between us. I relaxed into his embrace, breathing in his scent. "It's okay. I was just lost in thought." Zachary's arms tightened around me. "About what we discussed?" I nodded, pulling back to meet his gaze. "Zachary, I don't know if I can do this. My sisters, they're worried. They say I can't trust you." A flicker of something anger, frustration passed over his face before it settled back into a mask of concern. "Octavia, my love, you know I only want what's best for us, for our future together." "I know, but—" "No buts," he interrupted, cupping my face in his hands. "I need you to understand something. It's not just about giving up your position as priestess." My breath caught in my throat. "What do you mean?" Zachary's eyes bore into mine, intense and unwavering. "To truly be with me, to be my Luna, you need to give up your powers completely." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My powers? But Zachary, that's who I am. It's part of me. "It's what's keeping us apart," he insisted. "As long as you have these powers, you'll always be torn between two worlds. I want you fully in mine, Octavia. I want you by my side without any divided loyalties." Tears pricked at my eyes. "You're asking me to give up everything I've ever known." "I'm asking you to embrace everything we could be," Zachary countered. His voice softened. "I love you, Octavia, more than anything, but I need to know you're committed to our future, completely." I stepped back, needing space to think. The weight of his request crushed me. Give up my powers? The very essence of who I was? "I need time to think," I stammered. Zachary's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Of course, take all the time you need, but remember, the mating ceremony is in 3 days. I need your answer before then." With a final, longing look, he disappeared back into the forest, leaving me alone with my tumultuous thoughts. The next 2 days passed in a blur of sleepless nights and tear-filled conversations with my sisters. They begged me to reconsider, to see reason, but with each passing hour, my resolve strengthened. I loved Zachary. I wanted a future with him. And if that meant sacrificing my powers, then so be it. On the eve of the mating ceremony, I made my way to the sacred prayer ground. The air hummed with ancient magic, the very trees seeming to whisper their disapproval. "I'm sorry," I murmured, unsure if I was addressing the forest, my sisters, or myself. With trembling hands, I began the ritual. Words of power spilled from my lips, each syllable feeling like a betrayal. I could feel my connection to the moon, to the very earth beneath my feet, start to fray. "Octavia, stop!" I whirled around to see Seraphine bursting into the clearing, her face pale with panic. "What are you doing here?" I asked, hastily wiping away my tears. Seraphine approached cautiously, as if afraid I might bolt. "I overheard your sisters talking. They said you were going to give up your powers." I couldn't let you do that without talking to you first." I sighed, suddenly bone-weary. "There's nothing to talk about, Seraphine. I've made my decision." "But why?" she pressed. "Is this really what you want? Or is it what Zachary wants?" "It's what we both want," I insisted, but even to my own ears the words sounded hollow. Seraphine's eyes softened with sympathy. "Octavia, I'm your friend. I want you to be happy. But this doesn't feel right. You're giving up a part of yourself." "It's the only way," I said, more to convince myself than her. "Zachary says it's the only way we can truly be together." A shadow passed over Seraphine's face so quickly I almost missed it. "And you believe him? Just like that?" "Of course I do," I snapped, defensive. "He loves me." Seraphine held up her hands in surrender. Okay, I want you to be sure. This isn't something you can take back, Octavia." I turned away, unable to bear the concern in her eyes. I know what I'm doing, Seraphine. Please, just let me do this. I heard her sigh heavily behind me. All right, if this is truly what you want, I won't stand in your way. Just know that I'm here for you, no matter what. With a gentle squeeze of my shoulder, she left me alone once more. Taking a deep breath, I resumed the ritual. This time, I didn't falter. As the last word left my lips, I felt something fundamental shift within me. The constant hum of magic that had been my companion since birth faded to silence. It was done. My powers were gone. Feeling oddly hollow, I made my way back to the pack grounds. Tomorrow was the mating ceremony. Tomorrow, I would start my new life with Zachary. You're absolutely right. I apologize for overlooking that important detail. Let me revise the ending of the chapter to include a proper introduction of Seraphine before the betrayal scene. Here's an adjusted version of the last part. As I approached the main clearing, excited voices reached my ears. Curious, I quickened my pace. A crowd had gathered, all talking animatedly. At the center stood Zachary, his face alight with joy, and beside him, to my surprise, stood Seraphine. Seraphine had been my best friend since childhood. We'd grown up together in the coven, sharing secrets, dreams, and laughter. She was the one person outside of Zachary who truly knew me, who I trusted completely. Seeing her there with Zachary filled me with a momentary warmth, my two favorite people together. I started to make my way towards them, eager to share my news about giving up my powers. But something in their stance, the way they leaned into each other, made me pause. Before I could call out, Zachary's voice rang out across the clearing. My fellow pack members, I have wonderful news. The moon goddess has blessed me with a mate. My heart skipped a beat. This was it. He was going to announce our union to everyone. But then came the words that shattered my world. Octavia's povey. It is with the utmost joy in my heart that I want to show you all my mate. She is someone that has been there for me, and she has always been the one that I would look forward to seeing as my Luna. Zachary was smiling. I could not contain my joy. I was walking towards the stage to stand by his side as his Luna. I would love to let you know that I love you with all my heart, and I would never let anything stand between our love. Zachary's words were the only thing I could hear when I was walking to the stage. It was like it was only I and him in the ball. I was going to be his, and he will be mine. I was going to be with the one I love, and no one was going to put us apart. I have never loved anyone the way I love you, and it is only fate that brought you to me. Now my beloved will come up to the platform, my beloved Seraphine. I paused, dead on my trail. My heart almost stopped beating as I watched Seraphine walk up to the platform. What is going on? I stood there as if I had been struck with paralysis. I didn't understand whatever it was that was happening in front of me. I watched in horror as I watched Zachary kiss Seraphine in front of everyone. I could not even understand what was going on. What is going on? I yelled on the top of my voice. I was lost in anger. Everyone turned to me. Zachary and Seraphine looked at me with smiles on their faces. I didn't know what was making them smile, but I knew it was not going to make me smile. Oh dear Octavia, how do you like my surprise? Dazzling, isn't it? I know what you're thinking. We look cute together. Seraphine was smiling. I stood there confused and I didn't know what I was going to say or do. Why? I was holding back a flood of tears in my eyes. I could only mutter some few words, and it was not like me to stand there looking at me like that. What do you mean by why? Did you really think I would make someone like you my mate? How delusional are you? Zachary looked at me with a hint of disgust in his eyes. I had never seen him look at me that way. It was a look filled with hate and disgust. You told me you love me. I gave my life to you. I practically gave up my powers for you to make me your mate. I left behind my role as the priestess of my people to make sure I was going to be with you, and you tell me this? I was trying not to overreact and understand what was going on. Well, I see you are really dumb. Seraphine was sounding sarcastic. I looked at her. I didn't know what was going on, but from the way she was holding him, it was clear that they had been together for a long time. Since when is Seraphine? I was getting angry. I knew it was going to be trouble, but I wanted to be cleared. I needed to know what was going on. I beg your pardon. What do you mean? Seraphine was looking at me. I flared up in anger. I wanted to use a spell on her, but I remembered that I didn't have my powers with me. Since when have you been going out with my mate behind my back? I was infuriated. The feeling I had was all mixed up, and I could not tell what I was going to do. Your mate. If Zachary was your mate, then you will know he has a sworn hate for your kind. Your wrenched clan caused the death of his beloved mother and siblings. My father lost his service to your mother, so I don't know why you would think that he would be foolish enough to make you his mate. Seraphine words hit me unexpectedly. I was confused. What did she mean by all that? There was never a time when Zachary said that he hated the daughters of the moon. He said he loved them and would want them one with the pack, but never did he say or mention that they had caused the death of his family. What are you saying? There is no way that is what happened. The daughters of the moon would never hurt a soul. We keep the balance and make sure that the packs are safe from the dangers of the spiritual realm. Silence, Zachary yelled, cutting me off. I could feel his anger. But what I didn't understand was why he would be this hostile to me. He has never shown this level of anger before, and I was a bit confused. Zachary, what is wrong with you? I am your mate, not Seraphine. You told me that I was the only one for you, and no one else would ever take away my place in your heart. Have you not heard of acting? Zachary looked at me. He was serious. I don't understand. Why would you say that you were acting? The emotions we shared, the love we gave each other, the moments we shared. Where did all that come from? You can't tell me that you never loved me. It was real for you and I. You can't tell me that you didn't feel anything in all those moments we shared. At this point, the crowd had paused, and they were looking at me like I was going insane. So all the promises you made, it was all a lie? I looked at Zachary with tears in my eyes. He smirked. Fool, now you are getting it. There was no way I was going to love an abomination of nature like you. You were nothing to me. Zachary was trying to break me more than he had already. And now I will make sure you understand what I mean, Zachary said with a deeper voice. I looked up to see what he meant by that. Standing in front of the entire Crystal Groove pack, I, Zachary Henshaw, rejected Octavia Orissa as my mate. The moment he said those words, I felt pain worse than what I had felt when I gave up my powers. I fell to the ground holding my chest. I was confused. There was no way I could get myself together immediately. Why are you doing this? Why all this? Well, I have to make sure that nothing will stand in my way. I think it is best you go check on your people. It would be a shame if anything happened to them. You should be able to feel it. But wait, you have lost your powers. Zachary had a devious smirk on his face. My heart began to beat fast. I got up with the little strength I had left and began running to my clan. It was far, but I didn't have any time to call a cab. I kept praying that nothing happened to my people. Oh, please no, please be okay. I reached my clan, and what I saw was a sight to break any soul. My people. I fell to the ground in tears. My people were all dead. They had been brutally slaughtered. A soul-shattering anguish ripped through my very being. I felt hollow, utterly gutted, and consumed by a burning, all-encompassing desire for vengeance. Blinded by rage and grief, I ran back to the venue, my feet pounding against the ground as if possessed, desperate to confront the monsters who had not only betrayed me, but massacred my entire clan. My heart thundered in my ears as I entered the hall, desperately searching for Zachary. But it was Seraphine who spotted me first. There she is, she shrieked. The traitorous wretch! Octavia's Pove. Before I could react, Zachary's guards were on me, restraining my arms with vicious force. I struggled against them, fingers frantically grasping for any last trace of power left within me. But I found only a hollow, empty ache, a harsh reminder that I had foolishly stripped myself of my powers. You monster! I screamed at Zachary as he approached. You killed them all, my family! He tutted slowly, shaking his head in mock disappointment. Did you really think I would allow your coven of superstitious hedge witches to persist? You should have left with them when you had the chance. White-hot rage boiled in my veins. I launched myself towards him with every ounce of strength, but Seraphine was quicker, grabbing a fistful of my hair and violently wrenching me backwards. I gave up everything for you, I cried out, my voice cracking with anguish. Zachary's expression was utterly dispassionate. "And I've taken everything," he said coldly. "Now you'll slaughter you like the rest of your traitorous clan." I split my eyes open and darted across the room. Nothing about it seemed familiar. I woke with a throbbing headache as my body went sore all over, my senses were a bit jumbled up, and my body was numb a bit. I couldn't move in the slightest. My eyes remained glued to the ceiling, and footsteps approached me. I could hear some humming to the music. Finally, I lifted my body, slowly pushing up against the bed. It looked nothing like my room or my pack house. What was going on? I could see someone, a maid. I think a rag in her hand swiping against the tables turned to face me, and then stopped, remained frozen in place. Her gaze widened as they matched mine, and the rags in her hand fell from shock. "My lady?" she inquired, drawing closer to me. "You are awake?" she asked again, surprised, like she had seen a ghost. I didn't know this lady. I had never set my eyes against her in all my life. I couldn't understand why she addressed me as her lady, even though she had never served me. "Your Highness, you are awake!" she yelled aloud, throwing her arms over my neck and smiling widely while I remained stiff in bed. "Where am I, please? I don't think I've seen you before," I asked politely while she pulled away from home hastily. Her face went white from fear. "You don't know me?" she asked again, her lips quivering from fear, while I shook my head, uncertain of what she expected from what I said. "I'm Helen, your personal maid. I served under you for 9 years, Miss Freya. You can't remember?" she asked again, worry evident in her tone. "Freya?" I asked while she shook her head and drew closer to me, exclaiming slowly. "Yes, Miss Freya. How can you not remember? I am Helen, and you are Freya, the Alpha's illegitimate daughter. We've stayed here for as long as I can remember. Does any of that ring a bell?" she asked again, hoping for a change in response, but she seemed pretty insane to me. "Octavia, I'm Octavia. Can you please tell me where I am?" I asked, and she said nothing else. Staring at me with wide eyes frozen in place, I felt an urge to puke, my belly tied in a knot, and sudden dizziness struck me. I rose to my feet hastily, and she pointed towards a door while I made my way. I bolted it locked from behind while I buried my head in the sink, purging out everything, which was none other than water-like. I turned on the tap, washed my face, and raised my gaze to the mirror. A scream escaped my lungs while I dashed away from the mirror. So did the reflection in the mirror with my back against the wall. I remained glued to the spot, and the reflection had done the same. I pulled closer towards the mirror, leaned closer, and pulled at my check. The reflection had imitated me once more. And then I looked down at my arms, feet, and face. Another loud scream escaped my throat, and I heard banging on the door. "Are you okay, my lady?" the maid asked, yanking the door. I gave no response. She yelled as soon as her footsteps receded while my throat ran dry on the spot. I looked different, like a whole new person. I didn't look like the Octavia I was, and then the words the maid had said rang up in my mind. "Freya?" I called out slowly. She had referred to me as Freya, the illegitimate child of an alpha. I felt a sharp pain in my head, followed by a terrible ache, and my feet went weak as my knees gave out. I grabbed hard again to sink while a gush of memories sank into my mind. Flashback. My people, everyone, were dead. It was my fault. It's all my fault. While I remained on the spot, tears streaked from my eyes. I had given away my powers. I was weak. I couldn't do anything. I felt a sharp object plunge right into me. I looked down, and I could see the other end of the dagger right in front of me. I fell to the floor with a loud thud, blood oozing out of my chest. "They are all dead, Your Highness." The voice had called out, and I noticed the image blurry as footsteps drew closer to me. The person squatting before me was none other than Zachary, who yanked at my head while blood oozed through my lips. It was none other than, and I could hear the giggles of Seraphine come on from behind him. My body shook slowly while I felt myself slip out of subconsciousness. My dear Octavia, weak and blindly in love. Only if, in another world, you could be smart, but then, there is nothing like that. I never loved you to begin with, and now your kind are no more. There would not be a threat to my ruling as Alpha. Having said that, he stood to his feet, but not before dealing a kick to my sides. I coughed continuously while the pain took control of me, blood oozing through my nose. My eyes blurred out, but the last thing I saw was Seraphina going hand in hand with Zachary. I closed my mind, and with the last breath I had, I prayed to the moon goddess. All I wanted was a second chance. I wanted my revenge. I couldn't die. All I had was wholehearted love for him. It wasn't my fault. The migraine stopped and I stood on my feet. I remember it all now. The moon goddess had indeed granted me a second chance. I had been reincarnated as the daughter of some alpha. The door pushed open, and I matched gazes with two green pairs of eyes. A strikingly handsome man with a smile on his face. "Finally, you are awake, Freya. It's time to go. Father seeks your presence." When he spoke, chills ran down my spine. When I heard his words, I felt his eyes linger on mine for a while, boring deep into my soul. "And you are?" I asked, staring blankly at him while he moved out his hands to take mine in. My hands slid into his own on reflex while my gaze still matched his. "You really don't seem to remember, do you?" he asked, and I nodded negatively, staring at him, simply fascinated. "I am Nikolai, son of Alpha King Kolbjorn, Alpha of the Blood Sea Pack, and you Freya are my stepsister," he replied while I fought hard to keep a smile on my face. Bless the moon goddess. I had been reincarnated as the daughter of one of the most treacherous, cold, and powerful alphas, and here was my stepbrother, in power and all beauty. Nikolai ordered, "You are summoned by royal decree, as orders of our father, to take your rightful place as the princess of the Blood Sea Pack." "I honor the decree," I responded before setting my feet behind him. It was time I gave back the life I had. I knew it now. It was time to begin my revenge on Seraphine and Zachary, and I had been blessed with just the right life and position for it. Octavia's "Don't, please," I screamed, beads of sweat rolling off my temples and falling to my chest. I pushed my eyes open to meet the judging look of Nikolai, who seemed to have seen a new toy that caught his fancy. I swallowed hard, heat rising to my cheeks as I blushed from embarrassment. It was killing me, realizing how much of a fool I was. I had made myself into one. Just why? "Are we there yet?" I asked, and he raised his head a bit towards the window before averting his gaze back to his phone. It seemed to be just a few words, but I felt almost as if there was a spark in his eyes, and a pull when I tucked my hands in his. Or probably not. I wasn't in the best spot to go about making drastic decisions. Yet still, my lips were assorted and my mouth was agape as soon as I caught sight of the scenery before me. The car pulled up by the garage and I highlighted it, although still wary of this new identity and world of mine. But most importantly, something was different about me. I could feel a difference in my aura, unlike before, and now energy surged through me. It was as if my powers were still there. I knew it was making no sense, especially when I knew so well I had given them up to be with Zachary. But here I was, alive again, in some other girl's body. "Freya!" a voice called out. I glanced behind to catch sight of who had been mentioned, and then it struck me. I was Freya. I am no longer Octavia in this lifetime. I am Freya now. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Memories of my death, the betrayal, and the massacre of my people flooded back. I had to grip the car door to steady myself. How was this possible? The moon goddess had actually answered my dying plea. "Oh my, father wouldn't like this," Nikolai muttered before gritting his teeth. I watched as he made his way past me. I remained skeptical about him. Was he my stepbrother? Why wasn't he worried about me? If anything, he seemed worse than a bully. Although he hadn't passed me any hateful remarks or heartbreaking speeches yet, it was all in the eyes. I would pin my first impression on them. They all seemed to see me as a dunce. "Goodness, aren't you coming?" he asked, stopping to a halt. I watched as he adjusted the writing on his shirt before I picked up my pace behind him. He was handsome, whoever this was. Freya was indeed lucky to have such a handsome brother as this. But I couldn't let his looks distract me from my purpose. I needed to gather information to understand this new world I'd been thrust into. "I'm sorry, I won't intrude, but could you fill me in on the entire thing again? I mean, with the accident and all, I don't remember too much. In fact, I don't remember getting hurt, so if you could just help with it." He stopped abruptly, way too fast for what I expected. I ran into him, ramming my head into his back. He turned to face me, simply displeased. "It's not my fault you went into a coma, sister. It's not my fault you don't remember this. Besides, you had all the time in the day to do this, and you chose now. But for the sake of humanity, I'll tell you this, you are nothing special." The words had been dashed down to me without any form of preparation. Taken by shock, I stared plainly at him, my perspective about him changing on the spot. "How dare you?" I asked, wishing I was the former woman I was, back in my body. No one would dare talk down to me. After all, I was the high priestess of the witches, the head of the coven. "How dare me? Don't get all saucy now just because father had asked for your return. He needs to put on a show, that's all. You are the illegitimate daughter of the family, and as it pains me to rub it in, no one wants you. Perhaps losing your memory may have made you forget these, but you and I, we hardly spoke. We are nothing, not enemies nor friends. Pretty much nothing existed between us." "Enough," I retorted, balling my fists. For some reason, I felt a sense of emotion. Was this because I was in Freya's body? Were all these her emotions? I wasn't too sure what was going on, but I knew I wasn't going to tend to some high and mighty real brother and listen to more insults. "Don't cry now, sister. I'll actually feel bad. It is, after all, your first day in your new home. Although you will settle into your status soon enough, it doesn't mean I want you dead or gone or anything else. Enjoy it while it lasts, because this place is my home, and only one can be crowned. I would not let the likes of an illegitimate blood hinder my destiny." I could see the veins protruding right around his temples while he clenched his fists. Now that I understood it all, he was worried that their father may have brought in his sister to inherit the throne. But then, why on earth would he be bothered? Why would the Alpha King call for a daughter he had locked away for more than 17 years back into the palace? What's the bigger picture that I want to see clearly yet can't? As we approached the entrance, I felt a surge of nervousness. This was it. I was about to meet the most powerful alpha in the region, the man who was now my father. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. I needed to play this role perfectly if I was going to survive and eventually get my revenge. "Announce our arrival," Nikolai commanded, and he reached for my hand, a wicked smile on his lips while I took it. "Remember, you don't belong here," he complained again. This time I passed him a light wink. "We shall see, right? Who knows, the throne might be mine," I responded, not willing to take a backlash from a man. "His Royal Highness Nikolai and Her Royal Highness Freya are here." A bald blonde man who stood by the entrance announced while I made my way easily through the entrance. It was time to see Freya's father, my father, the most fearless and ruthless alpha of all times, and welcome him into my new life. As we entered the grand hall, my eyes widened at the opulence surrounding us. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, and plush red carpets lined the floors. Pack members lined the walls, their eyes following our every move. I could feel their curiosity, their judgment, and in some cases, their hostility. At the far end of the hall, seated on a throne that seemed to be carved from a single massive tree trunk, was Alpha Koli Bjorn. His presence was overwhelming, filling the room with an aura of power that made my knees want to buckle. His eyes, piercing and gray like storm clouds, locked onto mine. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. This was the man I'd heard whispered about in fearful tones, the Alpha whose reputation for ruthlessness preceded him. And now, in this new life, he was my father. "Freya," his deep voice rumbled across the hall. "Welcome home, my daughter." I swallowed hard, forcing myself to take a step forward. This was it, the moment that would set the tone for my new life. I had to be strong, had to be cunning. I may have lost everything in my past life, but here, now, I had a chance to build something new. A chance for revenge, yes, but maybe something more too. As I approached the throne, I felt a strange mix of emotions: fear, determination, and an odd sense of belonging. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. My second life had truly begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. Octavia's Povey. Thank you so much for a warm welcome. I sat by the table, beneath their pinning gazes, with Nikolai directly opposite me, Alpha King Bjorn at the head of the table, and a woman who certainly hated my guts sitting south of the table. Each one of them stared at me and exchanged glances continuously. Although I couldn't lie, I stole several glances at the Alpha King himself, one of the greatest alpha assesses out of the blue, my father. I always admired him, for his ruthlessness and, of course, how firm he was in his words. He had worked so hard to gauge his name that no one dared defy or disobey. "Welcome," he finally spoke, his voice low and cold so much that chills ran down my spine. Nikolai, he called out, raised his gaze to match his father's, and was less quick to avert it. Yes, father, he responded. You will train your sister. She will take part in the tournament to fight for the throne, but most of all, she needs to know the basics. Alpha Bjorn ordered out of the blue, taking everyone by surprise. But she's just a female. Silence, he ordered, his voice ringing and echoing all through the dining hall, which was way bigger than necessary. You will not teach me what is and what is not. That is what I want, and I'll check her moves in 2 weeks. She had better be good enough by then. See heed to her room once you both are down eating, Aloha Bjorn added in. He said nothing else and stood to his feet. The middle-aged woman had done the same, sure to have a scornful gaze pass to me. Will you talk to your father, please? Nikolai asked, his voice wafting up while he held the women's hands. She placed a kiss into his hair and then onto his temples. Your father wouldn't dare. I'll be dead before I let him out some rotten child on the throne. He just wants you to this. You have competition, son, that's all. After all, you're my child. You will always win, and she'll end up just like her mother. The woman retorted, half of her words directed at Nikolai, and the other hand passed down to me in the most sassy, snarky, and sarcastic manner. I scoffed watching as she made her sis last me while I directly entered the doors, amused at how quick Nikolai had switched up. He was acting all tough, cold, and harsh when it was me, and manly with his father. By down with his mother, he was a total softy. Don't you dare get a funny idea, he complained. Anger laced into his words while I took a sip out of the wine glass. What ideas? I'm only thinking the cook could have come down on the... I teased, getting under his skin on purpose. You think I'm a fool? I'm no imbecile, sister, and for some reason you think father would make you the alpha. Not in your wildest dreams will that come true. I complained again, yet hearing him speak in such a way made it seem like he was in a dire haste to convince himself rather than me. Who could blame me? Truth be told, I wanted the opportunity just as much as he wanted it. I didn't give my powers for now. I needed a way to revive it, and I needed to get my revenge on both Seraphine, the backstabbing snake, and Zachary. I said stop, he retorted, banging his fists against the table. Stop, Shat? I asked, frighteningly ignorant. That look in you? Yes. It's way too ambitious. I've seen that gaze blurted. And it'd be greedy even for you. I'm the alpha's son. I'm next in line, so get up and let's go. He retorted, and I stuck in the last piece of beef right through my lips before standing to my feet. The issue here is, we both know the truth. If I wasn't a threat to you, then you would not bother about me. Whatever it is you keep denying to yourself, hold it and that, but you heard the king, I am to take part in the tournament just as you will. So will you keep yapping, or take me to my room? I do not think father would be pleased to see you defying his orders. I blurted out. He grabbed me by the arm and pulled me closer to himself while my face stood inches away from him. Don't you dare touch me ever. You may be my brother, but I don't take it lightly when men hold me either by the arm or by the face, brother. I snapped right back. He cleared his throat, letting go of my arm before pulling away from me. I swallowed hard, reeling in every bit of space, length, breadth, and corridors that my eyes could remain pinned against just as soon as I took to my feet. Perhaps Nikolai had been asked to train me. It doesn't disrupt the fact that I am way more powerful than he was. Where are you headed? This is your room, Nikolai yelled, and I stopped to halt my embarrassment before walking back to him. Training starts at 4 tomorrow, he added, turning on his feet. 4? That'd be too early. I retorted, knowing I needed way more time to sneak around tomorrow morning and study the layout of our old palace. That's all, he retorted before storming away from the spot. It was something about his ego, which is perhaps getting beaten too. Oreo by me will reduce that by a bit. I pushed open the door to the room. Slowly, I stepped through the doors while a loud screech eased through my lips and a sudden wave of energy washed through me. I could feel it. Her presence, my powers. I swallowed hard, bracing myself for the most, snapped my fingers, chanted few words, and pushed open my eyes. There it was. I made a fireball. I still had my powers. I was still a witch, and yes, my powers remained intact. Nikolai's Pove. Father, you must be quite mistaken. I am your son. It's me, Nick, and if anyone should be a bastard, it should be Freya. She's the one who is an illegitimate daughter, a child born of a servant. Finish that sentence, and I shall have your head on my plate, Nikolai, Father warned. I swallowed hard, holding back the anger that reeled into me. I could see he was keen on his word, but his explanation made no sense. Father, why? I've served you for as long as I remember. I have worked out, trained to perfection, and done every single thing I could to ensure that I am a perfect mirror image of you, and you give all that matters to some girl? Some illegitimate child of yours who has not once done anything in your favor? I asked, staring intently at him. He rose to his feet, his hands studying his pockets as he walked towards me, a broad smile on his face while he nodded. There it is. There you have it. The exact words don't make sense to you. Then fight for it. After all, I'm giving you a chance to prove your worth and win it fair and square. In the end, we'll see who really deserves it, he explained with such nonchalance that I felt my blood boil in my veins. I will not fight. I will not fight hard to claim my birthright. And most importantly, I will not put up an argument with some child of yours, a girl, to claim the throne. I yelled, but he seemed unmoved by my outburst. The door was pushed open on cue, and my mother walked right in with her eyes moving along to match my father's gaze. What's going on here? She asked, and I sighed. I swallowed hard, trying to have all the pressure that had built up within me subside and fade out. How about you ask this husband of yours, who here is putting up Freya for the throne? He gifted her the land, and indeed, as if that is not punishment enough, he had spoken of making sure she claims the throne, I retorted. The words rolled off my tongue with such bitterness. He wasn't bothered by it a bit. He kept his nonchalance, his shoulders relaxed, just as if he were waiting for a mistake, a chance, or a word from my mother. Mom was never one to back down in an argument. As a matter of fact, she was always the picky one. Although she fought with my father every once in a while, it never lasted this long. Is there? By chance? Is there something that you wish to say to my mother? Is there something going on? Something I need to know about? I asked, and she hesitated for a bit and stammered some inaudible gibberish while my father spoke. You should be resting, Nikolai. How about you help yourself up a bit? He explained bluntly. I don't want you going through baseless arguments, so go on to your room. I'll handle this. I won't. How about you both tell me exactly what is going on? Because your husband here called me a bastard, and for what reasons now, his illegitimate child of all. I would not stand for this embarrassment. I blurted out suddenly. My anger ate away at me. Will you tell your wonderful son, or should I? Father asked, and his questions were directed at Mom, who obviously was panicking. Please don't say a word. We agreed on this, please. Just this once, Bjorn. Hearing her call out my father's name made me realize how important it was. Not only was she keeping a secret from me, it meant she was in some sort of huge trouble. As I knew at the moment, I made the biggest mistake of my life by making inquiries about things I didn't want answers to. You aren't my son. You and I have never been blood related, Father retorted. His words had been dropped like a bombshell. I wasn't prepared for a truth like that. My heart raced in my chest. I could hear it with loud thuds in my ears. Both of them were swaying with something, and I felt my soul got yanked out of my body while my world plunged into darkness as a whole. No, you can't. I shouldn't. I stuttered at the end of my words. Pain was eating away at my heart. Go on. Why don't you explain to your son? Tell him how you've been in an affair with the Pack Delta, Dad asked. Mother had said nothing, her eyes cast down to her feet, her silence heavy, slashing through the tension that filled the air. This isn't true. Father is mistaken, right? Say something, Mom. You can't really be in a relationship with him, Mr. Fred of all people, because he is nothing but the Delta to the Pack. You never even spoke with him. My father's scoff had cut through my words. She never spoke with him? She's testing my patience by keeping up the innocent act. I agreed to keep her secret because I couldn't just toss out the entire relationship we both built together. You remain my son, but never would you get the throne to be the Alpha King. You can't do this to me, I retorted. I was scared. Scared of the reality I had been drawn into, scared to face the life that has been played out for me. I was not ready to be the son of a nobody. My entire life, I have worked so hard just to ensure that I remain the perfect son of my father. That was all I had planned. My life had just one purpose, to grow to be the Alpha King. And now what? What was I to be doing? I would be ruined if Freya really got everything that I worked hard for. It wasn't my fault any of this happened. Besides, you can't just believe the words of the Delta. How about we wait for him to return and then question him on the entire thing? I added in. He's not gone on a mission, nor is he on some sort of travel. He's dead. I made sure of that. No one under me would lie to my face, sleep with my wife and get her pregnant, then ask for mercy. I made sure I ended his miserable life. He is a traitor, and he betrayed me not only as an alpha, but as his friend. So go on, argue back and forth all you like. Your mother couldn't even deny it. And you want me to believe anything else? He walked out of his office, leaving Mother and I facing each other. I could see how guilty she looked. And for the fact that I had been kept in the dark about all of it, none of them would have said a word to me about it. I happened to find out by chance the truth to it all. Octavia's povey. Well, you most certainly seem so excited about this ball of yours and stuff. Out of the blue, Nikolai's voice rang through the air. I turned to see him leaning against the door, arms folded over his chest. Oh, please go on. Do not let me interrupt this charade you have going on, he added, pure sarcasm in his words. I stared at him blankly, moving my gaze towards him and away from him. It did seem like he didn't quite understand the dire situation we were in at the moment. What do you want, Nikolai? I think the orders are clear. There will be a ball in about an hour, and you aren't dressed yet, I asked, tilting my head a bit, uncertain of how the entire royalty thing worked out. Was I dressed way too early? Perhaps it was my driven mind, determined to hunt down Seraphine by flirting with Zachary, that made me this eager. I'm sure. Although I would hate to be the type that makes hasty decisions, I couldn't sleep all night. It made my blood boil. The image played around in my head so much that I believed myself on the brink of insanity, tossing from one side of the bed to another. All I wanted was to get back at her. She believed she could make my life miserable, get to my mate after murdering me, and then start life afresh on her own end. I most certainly wouldn't want any problem like that. Being the snake she was, she went after Nikolai as well. I was reborn again, and for the second time, she was aiming at me for no reason at all. I want to see my father's conspicuous daughter, he snapped, acting all funny, and a very silly smirk was plastered to the sides of his lips. He walked into the room, missing his steps and fidgeting with each movement he made. And then I realized it. He was drunk. I rolled my eyes, knowing he was troubled by not even a single coherent thought at the moment. I shrugged, holding off his balance for him. Get out of my room this instant. I believed you were a loser, but drunk, this early on an important day? You really are a disappointment to me, and here I wondered how life could be so different, I added, staring back at him. Back at home, in my previous life, the coven made sure to protect one another. We were always on guard, on duty, never late, and yet the son to the most powerful alpha was drunk, lazy, weak, and helpless. I could easily snap his neck like a twig without anyone knowing. I knew I had been tasked with driving them extinct, but I wanted Zachary to have his pound of flesh first. First Seraphine, next Zachary, and everyone else could come after. Perhaps Nikolai third on the list. He wasn't much of a help. Also, he taunted Freya at every chance that he got. I pushed up his weight from my body and tossed him over to the bed. He let out an erratic voice, his annoying laughter raging through the room. Yet I knew better than all of that. You know all of this you caused. Only if you had never been born, only if that mother of yours didn't seduce my father, he wouldn't have a choice but to accept me as his son. No matter what happened, I would be his only surviving child. He retorted, anger and pain laced with his words. I wasn't certain of what to think when it got down to a certain level of things, and I still couldn't believe he was yelling around and snapping at me when I had done nothing at all. You are drunk, so I'll let it slide, but the next time you talk about me or my mother like that, I won't spare you, Nikolai, I threatened before making my way past him. My mind remained cobbled with lots of thoughts while I headed towards the door, wondering where Helen was when I ever needed her. How did it feel? He asked out of the blue. I stopped to a halt, turned to face him, and surprise tinged my words. Pardon? How does it feel to be cast out? All those years you spent curled up in a house? All those years you had nothing to look at, knowing your whole father had turned his back on you? How did you strive through each day? What was your driving force? He asked again. The more he spoke, the more I couldn't fathom what it was about him that seemed so empathetic. Why bother storming into my room just to rub it in my face that I had been sent away and shoved off to the sides in the pack by my own father? I inquired. He staggered to his feet. I could feel how heavily the alcohol was hitting him. He clenched his jaws and rubbed his palms over his eyes before gritting his teeth, slowly taking me by surprise. I don't mean to piss your lordship off. After all, you are your father's new favorite, aren't you? I rolled my eyes in my head, not knowing why he was such a pain in the spine and a big crybaby. I had been the one locked away for years, yet he always found a way or another to think that the Alpha King chose Freya as his favorite. The more he spoke and repeated it, the more illogical his explanation seemed. Wait, he retorted, holding a firm grip on my arms while I proceeded to walk out the door. You cried once before me, right? He asked, and I shook my head. Can I just have a minute? He asked. I remained stiff while he wrapped his arms around my neck, tears slipping onto my shoulders. I tensed up on seeing this act of his, completely taken by surprise. It had all been a lie, Freya. I never was his son to begin with. I am nothing to him. He isn't my father, and neither am I his son. Octavia's Pove. Your brother. Where is he? What is he up to at this moment? Alpha Bjorn asked, his eyes darting around. I guess he'll be here soon in his room, I responded. Very well then, you can talk to people and have fun. Nikolai would be happy to show you around. After all, this ball is to celebrate your return home, he explained. The smile on his face was deeper, and I watched as he walked away, an odd feeling tingling down in my toes. He never would have cared about me. He wouldn't have bothered if he found out that his son was a bastard, and now he ran off to dead ends. Freya was meant to be a replacement. If he told the truth, she would still remain caged within those walls, drenched in sorrow every passing day. They were all an unbelievable bunch of hypocrites. From the corner of my eyes, I had seen Nikolai walking through the crowd. His stance was still, and he looked back to his usual sarcastic self, nothing much of the drunkenness that he had been an hour ago. You? It was a mistake. I had a mental breakdown, a moment of weakness. Most certainly that was all. Don't you dare say a word about it, he warned sternly, and he took my arm into his while I swallowed hard. All I wanted was that I had been told by your father that you would be taking me on a tour, showing me around. So how about we get to it? I asked, cutting into his words. He had seen me cry, and I had seen him do the same. I didn't want any extra time for personal conflicts. My mind was set. They were all going down, and tonight I had my eyes on my first prey. Your Highness, Freya, Zachary greeted, took my palm to his, and placed light kisses against it. I'll be showing her around. I think that's enough, Nikolai retorted, jerking my hand from Zach's grasp. I followed behind him while he dragged me forcefully until we were both away from them a little bit. What is wrong with you? What was that about? I asked, flaring up almost immediately. I had a plan mapped out in my head for seducing Zach, taking him to a secluded corner, and then killing him off, but I wouldn't be able to do it because his big brother Nikolai here would not leave me to breathe for a single second. What is the matter with you? He went around placing kisses on your palms, and you feel so free about it. Have you no shame, sister? He asked, and a scoff went through my throat. We're seriously doing this. Can you talk to me about shame? Really? When all you've done is nothing but sleep with his wife. Enough! He chirped hastily, placing his palms over my lips while his eyes darted around. Watch your words, or you won't have a tongue to speak or a finger to write by the time the night comes, he threatened, but a smirk crawled up to the sides of my lips. I wasn't intimidated by him. I didn't care a bit. He worked me up. But other than that, I could deal with him in my own way, without having to bother myself about what he was thinking. What are you both doing? Alpha Bjorn asked while making his way towards us. I swallowed hard before glancing at Nick, and just then I realized the proximity we shared. He pulled away from me, slightly embarrassed, and heat rose to my chest. For some reason, my heartbeat spiked on the spot, hammering fast against my chest. Go on, present your sister. This is her party after all. Alpha Bjorn joined in, sure enough to tuck the fallen strands of my hair behind my ears. Tonight is all about you, my daughter, he added before walking away from us. I wasn't sure what to think of him. I knew he wasn't much of the father figure type, but I didn't have a say in this. I mean, what type of father keeps his children locked up for so long? Nothing much could be done on my end, and I'd rather have things left as simple as that. I ruffled my hair as Nick glanced over at me. Come with me, he added. We both walked towards the podium, and he picked up glasses of wine, one for himself and one for me. My eyes searched amongst the crowd, hoping to find them. And I was right. Zachary and I locked gazes. He smiled broadly at me and passed me a sultry wink while his gaze remained pinned to that of Nikolai, who had been giving some sort of a boring speech. The talk went on for several seconds, with other words about him yapping, but that didn't bother me way too much. All I wanted to do was ensure that Zach and I got a personal space tonight. Having said all these, I introduce you all to my stepsister, my other half in blood bond and Her Royal Highness Freya, he introduced. Loud murmurs erupted amongst the crowd, lots of gasps, jeers, and sneers. Each one had something to say. Nikolai held his hand towards me while I took it and made one step closer to him. Can you all raise your glasses? He asked, and they all did just as he had asked. Now, can we all make a toast? To welcome the princess, to welcome our sister, our Royal Highness back home, he asked and raised his glass once more. He passed me a smile that almost could have fooled me. To Freya, he added. To Freya, they all chorused in unison, raised their glasses and all took a sip. Loud claps and exclamations of joy followed after. I got a strange feeling, an unsettling omen, seeing all this and how they all celebrated Freya. I can't tell if I was simply pained or very jealous. She wasn't here to see all of this, and I felt like we were stealing her special moments, Octavia's povey. It pained me down to my core, and yet I deserved a life like this as well. Sudden regret washed all over me while I ran my mind across all that I had done and all I had given up for the sake of love. Tears welled up in my eyes while I watched the sight that played out before me. I protected the coven at a very young age. I had been the head maid of the coven. I was crying over witches who were older than me. I was lonely, broken, and desperate for a long time. All I wanted was love. All I wanted was someone who would remain by my side. And then I found Zachary. I was desperate for love and attention. We could have had it all, but it was never going to be enough for him. He just had to betray me. I raised my glass as well before pulling it closer to my lips. To Freya, I muttered before taking a gulp of the wine, my eyes against those of Zachary's. I gave him a light wink before walking off the podium towards the entrance. My eyes trailed alongside his, sure enough that he was following behind me. I hummed in low tones, my fingers scraping against the wall with each step I took. I wanted him dead, and I couldn't wait anymore. The only way I could be at peace was to do this for Freya and for myself too. I pushed open the door to my room, satisfied that Helen wasn't in at the moment. I wouldn't want her witnessing a gruesome death. I tilted my head to see Zachary following after me, a smirk strapped to his lips. I settled into the couch in my room, my feet crossed over each other while the door pushed open, and my number one enemy walked in, clueless just like I had been. He would probably be shocked to death to find out this was not Freya, but his ex-lover whom he had murdered ruthlessly. Freya, your room? He asked half-heartedly, his eyes scanning through the room and lots of probably perverted thoughts stuck up in his head at the moment. So do tell me, what exactly is wrong? You don't look too happy. This is your party after all, he whispered before sitting right next to me on the couch. I felt rage like no other. He really was unbelievable. He had killed me barely a month ago. He had his hands full with Seraphine and probably other women, yet here he was having a go at Freya again? How much of a cheap steak was he really? I'm not sure. I guess I want more than just a bunch of boring people, I explained, speaking in low tones. Although he was without guards, I knew he was still swift. It was what I intended to do. I had better be smart about it or my neck would snap for the second time. Surely, the coven wouldn't be nice enough to grant me another lifespan after 2. I'm sorry? Is there something you want to talk about? I'm here, you know? He asked, still giving me that odd romantic look while leaning closer to me. Yes, perhaps you look fun, I added, biting against my lower lip. I pushed myself against him, this time closing every space between us, our chests pressing against each other. My arms curved up to his neck, holding him in a slight chokehold. I see, you want a bit more, don't you? He asked with a tease, and a grin crawled up on my lips. Finally, I had him where I wanted. Weak, vulnerable, I would have my revenge. He pulled swiftly away, standing to his feet, immediately taking me by surprise. I stared blankly at him, utterly stunned, confused at what had just happened. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be here. It's a very bad idea, he responded, holding in his words and cursing beneath his breath. Aside from the fact that your father has been nice to me and that he is also a very strict alpha, I know I shouldn't be doing this, Freya. I like you, and I really know it's wrong. I have a mate and everything, but I've made a couple of mistakes in the previous month, and I wouldn't want that to happen again. I'm sorry, okay? He asked. I swallowed hard, and rage was boiling down within me. It was impossible. Did he suspect something already? Zachary was heartless, cold, and brutal. I had seen the smile he had on his face when he had his men stab me to death. He walked over my blood with no remorse. How could he be turning down the offer of cheap sex? Acting all manly with morals? The door was pushed open without warning or notice, and Nick's face popped out. Just at the most unexpected moment, he was always walking in to ruin things. Friends, Zach asked, and I smiled faintly. Yes, friends, I responded while he made his way out of the room, leaving me with the crybaby of a big brother all alone in the room. I don't even think I want to know what's going on here, but I guess we are both even now, aren't we? He asked with a smug grin and a wicked smile, haunting every bit of my sanity. What does that mean? I asked almost immediately, refusing to play into whatever twisted mind games he had all corked up in his head. It's the same thing, isn't it, Seraphine and I? You and Zachary. I'm guessing you aren't as innocent as father believed you would be, sister. I have nothing to be afraid of. You wouldn't last long in this pack, not to talk about taking the throne. Octavia's Pove. Tossing from side to side had been the only thing I spent the entire night doing. Perhaps it was out of rage or out of pain. Zachary's words hung like a cloud above my head. I pushed myself up, sat in bed, and my fingers ran into my hair. I couldn't figure it out. Why had he said something like that? The cheapskate wouldn't change overnight. Was it that he really feared Alpha Bjorn? Or had he somehow figured that it was me, not Freya? Why on earth would he turn down a free offer at sex? My body was just as compelling. He had set his eyes on me and had been passing me flirty looks from the very beginning. Of course, he didn't just walk into the room to give me some pep talks. He was into it, but suddenly snapped. Besides his random chirping about mistakes, his usual talks, and one too many annoying speeches, what exactly was he up to? I didn't know if it was just for fun or if he felt like I was, but I knew for certain that I didn't like his manners by a bit. It got on my nerves. And that bastard! He had empty threats. Most of the time he had spoken of Freya. Yet last night was different. I wasn't sure what it was that he meant, but I had seen a wicked glint in his eyes. It was almost as if he was certain Freya would be hosed off the rock grounds so soon. I swallowed hard in a very quick attempt to cover up my worries. I didn't want my pain and anxiety to be easily sensed from afar. Your Highness? Are you awake? Helen asked, standing by the door. I raised my glance towards the clock. It was minutes past 5, and yet I had not slept a wink. Come in, I responded, and she pushed open the door, tilting her head a bit. You weren't asleep? That's rather strange, she asked me. I'm not entirely sure if she was being a tease of her own accord. She stood only inches away from me with that odd look on her face. Isn't it time for me to train? I asked her, and she nodded. Actually, about that, Sir Nicholas has been in the training field for 2 hours already. He didn't quite see a bother with waking you, she explained. Each word she said held its own difference, but I knew she meant no harm to me. Good, take me to him. I rose to my feet as I spoke and stormed into my closet, picking out the firmest romper I could find. Good enough, I had sneakers to match. She glanced sideways at me but kept her words to herself while pushing herself forward. We both took to our feet, none of us saying anything to the other. The corridors were dimly lit, and with twists and turns, we finally were out on the open grounds. A grin crawled up the sides of my lips as soon as my gaze matched that of Nicholas. "Scared that I might beat you? That's why you didn't wake me?" I asked, keeping up with my cocky attitude while I approached him. I freed my sword from its sheath, checking its beauty, and my fingers trailed across the blade. "Oh, please, I merely thought you wouldn't need the hassle, and besides, you'll be back in that hole you were crawled up in quite sooner than you think, so why bother training? You wouldn't need it till the day you took your last breath," he teased. I kept a cunning look in my eyes, and I loved how perfectly he underestimated me. "A sword? What are you going to do with a sword? Have you ever wielded one of those? Go grab a stick and let's go with baby steps," he ordered, and I nodded. He was right. I was way too angry to be wielding a sword. I could sell him a lie that it had been a mistake. After all, he said that I wasn't strong enough and knew nothing. I walked towards the stand and pulled out a stick. That would do. I would be careful not to break his bones, just leave him sore. I don't give pity notes, and I definitely do not go easy on you. And please, there should be a safe word like help, because your sister would need lots of those when I'm done with you, he warned again. Soon enough, cries would likely replace the sly look on his face. I had trained for 17 years. I practiced chants, spells, and every move known to man, yet here he was talking to me like I was his weak, innocent sister. "You would be the one needing a safe word," I responded with a smile. He pushed his body towards me and launched at me with a sword. I had moved swiftly to the side, causing him to stumble ahead, and in the process, I had struck the vein right behind his neck, making him look like a joke. "Please, brother, you can do better," I teased, acting all coy and innocent. I kept pushing my way towards him. He twisted and turned, making his way. A few more minutes later, he had gotten a total of 12 strokes without touching a single hair on my body. "I think I've seen enough," a voice called out ahead of us, and I lifted my gaze to see that it was Alpha Bjorn. "It looks very good to you, Freya, but how did you learn all these? You've been cooped up in your room all along. Is there anything I'm missing about my child?" he asked, totally ignoring Nick, and I didn't feel good about this little gesture of his. "I trained. I was busy with nothing, so I did the best I could do back at home," I lied. If I had known he had been watching everything, I could probably have taken a few blows from Nick as well, but now I had acted all strange and way too good for a beginner. "And you?" he inquired, matching Nick's gaze. "I'm sorry, he is still drunk from last night's party," I lied, covering for him. "Is that so? Well then, you get to come with me, Freya. I'm having a little bit of a meeting with the councils. Meet me in my office in 4 hours. It will be beneficial to you by then."